The Spaniards, when the Mexicans revolted, were told to go home. And the next group of missionaries that came in were Mexicans from Mexico. And California was a colonia de Mexico for a long time. When the Mexican missionaries and the Mexican government with its soldiers took over from the Spaniards, who were told to leave and had to leave, they saw that there was a lot of wealth in these missions. And in Mexico, there was a secularization of many of the churches and church properties down there, and these all went to the government. So now the soldiers came in, took over the buildings. Some of these churches were made into barns, or they were storage areas, and this was the beginning of the end.
In the 1800s, after the Civil War in Mexico between Mexico and Spain, California was divided up into Mexican land grants. Soldiers who had participated in the war were given land grants for their bravery.
There were a number of Mexican ranchers who spread out around the country, and everywhere they had to use native labor. It was not their custom to work themselves because they came from a stratified society where if you were a successful person, it meant you didn't do too much work and you had other people work for you. And as the ranches develop and as the rancher makes a little more money off of selling cattle and hides and so on, then he has more and more native labor working for him. The native labor are usually the people who have escaped from the missions and are returning to their home villages. And these are the people that are valued the most as laborers because they've already been broken in.
The town of Concord, the entire town of Concord, from the base of Mount Diablo all the way out to Suisun Bay, belonged to Salvio Pacheco. It was 17,000 acres. The Las Medanas land grant in Pittsburgh was a 17,000 acre land grant. The people who owned these land grants lived in San Jose. They sent a vaquero, a son, a nephew, to sit on the property in his adobe with his family and watch the herds of cattle.
But as they get these rancho grants, one thing about Mexican land law and Spanish law before that was that the native people continue to have their rights of following their traditional livelihood on the land, even though it's given as a rancho grant. So the rancho grant is not like absolute title to the property. It's a use right. You have the right to use it, to run cattle. And you need, of course, the native people to take care of the cattle.
In those days, there was no refrigeration. So the cattle were used for hides and tallow. The hides were worth $1 a hide. The tallow was sold. It was a very profitable field. Slowly, we moved into having refrigeration. More people came into the property. And unfortunately, people came in squatters sat on all of these 17,000 acres that everyone had. And Contra Costa began to grow.
So all the cowboys are actually native California Indians. They're the ones who actually run the cattle and round them up and kill the cattle and take off the skins and tan the hides and so on and so forth. Those are all native people who've become vaqueros or cowboys for the Spanish soldiers who then become Mexican soldiers after 1821, 1822.